Hey folks, my name's Kevin. It's time for a little bit more knife nerdery, or I guess gear nerdery this time. And also I tricked you, it's another unboxing video. Well, no, I mean it is going to also be an unboxing video, but I figured the springs were so strong on the full-size Tactile Turn that I probably would need to swap them on the Mini too. So I haven't actually seen this yet, so we're going to take a look at the Slim Mini. And then we're going to do a spring modification live. And that doesn't mean just swapping the springs, I already showed that. We're going to actually modify one of the springs to be even shorter so you can see what it's like to adjust spring tension once you have a given set of springs. Okay, let's get started because I've not opened this yet. This is the full thickness, full length, so it's as big as it can get. And this is the slim thickness, mini length, as small as it can get. So this is gonna be a funny little juxtaposition. Oh, it's so tiny. Oh, it's so tiny. Oh, that is adorable. That, it looks so much smaller than I expected. That's really funny. And yes, is this? Oh yeah, that is super firm. Super firm. And at this point I've gotten totally used to this much more pleasant level. It still gives you a nice firm snap, but isn't hard to push down. So this, ooh. Okay, look how stinking cute it is. Are you gonna focus? We're doing, no, we are focusing, there we are. Yeah, you can see that fun little details. They've got the, come on. Can I get you to focus? Welp, it does say in there, Tactile Turn 2021, if I can get it focused. But anyway, if you are not familiar with what's different between the slim and the full thickness, they changed the clip. That's the big difference. I mean, it's also obviously thinner. This is, what is this, 0.43, and this is 0.36, so it's definitely slimmer. The other big difference is just that they changed the clip. I don't 100% understand why they chose to do that, because I personally like the deep carry clip version on this, and they could have easily done that for this, but they didn't. And they can't just swap it in because there's a little groove right here where this would fit. So even if you took this off, which I'm not sure why you would ever take it off on this version, but even if you did, even if they started selling clips that fit this diameter, you couldn't just swap it on. I guess since this is technically a sneaky unboxing, I might as well see what it's like to hold it. Ooh, you know what? You know what? I think I might like that better. This feels really good, but it is a smidge thick. And this feels a little bit better. And then, you know, if we put something like this in the middle, this is the TiScribe, you can see, yeah, this is the Goldilocks size. I'm gonna call that. I think I already did, but this is the Goldilocks size. Anyway, let's get to the point of this video because this is too strong. Okay, so I'm assuming this comes off the same way. Yup. Okay, so for reference, if you buy this, oh yeah, so the other thing is the minis use a Pilot G2 mini refill, and super obnoxiously, Pilot does not sell the minis just as a refill. So to replace this, you literally have to buy a full-fledged Pilot G2 mini pen and just, I don't know, lament having an extra pen case around without a refill in it. It's really stupid. Someday, it's not like this is new, so I don't know what's getting around. I was going to say someday they'll offer it, but it's not new, so who knows. Anyway, either the full size or the mini, since they're both using a Pilot G2 style refill, they both use the exact same spring. And if you order a spare of the spring from Tactile, it comes in the same little case that they use to give you the extra erasers if you get one of the pencils, and that's just adorable. How do you even get a tiny little case like this? What? Anyway, so the springs in the mini, or the slim, yes, that's an important difference. The springs in the slim and the full size, either way, is exactly the same as long as you get the full length or the mini length. If you get the one that doesn't have a G2 refill, if it's got the Parker refill, that has a different spring, which is slimmer and different, and I've never seen it in person. But this is not the spring I want. I believe where I landed on the big one, get out some of these spare springs that I got. I believe where I landed on the big one is that I liked this one the best. I think this was my Goldilocks, the 1.04 pounds. But at the time, not only did I like the 1.04 pounds more, I wanted a slightly less spring force than even that. So first things first, let's try it with the 1.04. Pop that baby in. Oh, you know what? I might have issues with max. So one of the things I mentioned this in my other video, but on any of these springs, there's going to be a nominal length, but there's also going to be a minimum length under full load. And that minimum length is going to vary depending on how tight this coiling is. And so you can see that these springs that I'm swapping in have a way tighter coil. It's easier to see one. And so the tighter coil means that there's going to be more physical metal there when you compress it, which means its minimum length is going to be longer. And I ran into issues on this one because the minimum length was too long, and it meant that I couldn't get full clearance past this nub on some, but not all of the springs I got. And that's one of the reasons for trimming the springs down like we're going to do in this video. I might run into that right now because I have no idea what the differences are here, and since I was right on the verge, it might just happen. So let's find out. Nope. Okay, good. So I do have clearance. It's obviously not full clearance. You can see that I'm not able to completely hit the bottom of the channel, but I do have clearance, and this is already way better. Yeah. So what I ended up putting in here right now is 1.04 pounds per inch of spring tension. What came in it, they don't list the spring tension, but my friend who sent me the extra springs, he tried to measure it himself and came out to about 1.5, which is only a 50% increase. It might be as high as 1.6 or 7, but trust me, it makes a really big difference. And since the Tactile Turn bolt pens are just a 90-degree little ridge right here that you're pressing on, it really does increase the comfort. But we're going to still modify this spring further because, for one, by making it slightly shorter, you are slightly reducing the spring tension, but also you are going to increase this ability to travel. And I am clearing the bottom here by a good amount, so I'm not really worried about it. But you might get a spring, you might buy different springs than me, and you might get a spring that doesn't allow full travel. So we're going to show you how to do that today. Okay, so what we're going to do is trim this spring down and then take the end and bend it down to close the end the way you would find right here. So we're going to recreate this style of end, but by taking a little bit off. Now, to do this, you're going to need clippers. And I know you probably have a pair of Leathermans or something, or even small pliers that have little clippers. I'm telling you right now, you can clip it with something like this, but you're going to damage them. You're going to damage them on a regular Leatherman too. If they're not rated for spring wire or hard wire, or in this case, these are labeled officially music wire. You'll also see them labeled as piano wire. If they're not rated for really, really hard spring wire, what you're going to end up doing is deforming your cutters. I did that the last time before I bought these, and I'll pop in a picture right here to show you what it looks like when you're basically rolling the edge, because this is really, really hard metal that they use in springs. And some springs are crazy, like rocket wire springs are really hard to clip. So a good pair of clippers that are rated specifically for piano wire, which is even harder than hard wire. Most clippers have soft wire ratings, hard wire ratings, and then this is Nipex, a wonderful German brand. They actually have additional third rating for the piano wire. And mostly, if it's rated piano wire at all, that means it will cut through without deforming. But then the other thing you'll see is they're rated for how thick of piano wire they're going to do. And that's not how hard can it cut through, that's a matter of how much tension you have. And so you can get versions that are much longer handles or have additional joints here to add additional multipliers on your force. And yeah, but as long as you get something that is rated for music wire, piano wire, spring wire, any of those things, you'll be good. The next thing you're going to want are little pliers. You'll be better off if you have ones with a flat edge, just because they will... grippy little toothy edges like this are going to... they run the risk of just micro bending the spring. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter in this case. So if you have ones like this, that's fine too. I also brought out this pair for my kit that has flat edges, but just long. It's not a super big deal. The last thing you're going to want is safety goggles. And this might seem stupid, but you're about to clip a tiny little sharp piece of metal that's going to want to go flying. It's a spring. It's literally a spring, so it's going to want to spring away. And I'm probably going to cover with my hand to try and catch it so it doesn't go flying in my apartment here, but don't be stupid. If that gets lodged in your eye, you can blind yourself. So safety glasses. So last time I did this, how much did I cut off? Let's see. And I'll use that as an estimate about how short I want to make this. So I made it that much shorter. So it looks like I want to cut it right around this one, maybe half up. So put my safety glasses on. Find that spot again. I want to cut it there. So it's just a matter of getting this in here. So you can see right there, I'm going to cover this, and it did go flying, but not at my face. This is what we just trimmed off. Okay, don't need these anymore. The next step is to bend this back down to close this gap. Technically, that's optional, like it'll function perfectly fine right now. This is just very sharp. So what we're going to do is grip this and do small bends. Now, spring wire, by definition, wants to spring back. It's been put into a position and it wants to maintain that position. So if you distort it from the position, it wants to spring back. So bending springs in a permanent way can be a little bit tricky, but it's not that hard. Basically, you just need to have a small bend radius. And what I mean by that is, rather than taking a long piece and trying to bend like this, or like, you know, a long wire that you're trying to bend like that, you want a very short wire that you're bending at a very tight angle. So let's try that again. Hold that right there. And just go along and do small bends. We're going to work our way down the spring, bending it down. And it doesn't really need to be pretty. You can come back and clean it up more if you want, but it basically just has to be closed. Now I'm reaching the point where these are a little bit too snub-nosed, so I'm going to switch over to these, which are just a tiny bit finer. And you can see I'm already starting to close that gap, but it's spiraling up on me. So I want to have this tip just down a little bit more. doing this under a camera is an odd experience. Okay. And what you'll find is that you kind of just have to go back over this a few times because you're not going to have super fine tips here, which means every time you wedge it in, it's going to be bending it up just a little bit and kind of undoing some of the work that you did. But it doesn't take much. So we've reached a point where it's not closed, but you could stop here. I'm going to keep going, and I'll probably put this next bit just on maybe 2x speed or something, and just give you a sense of how long it took overall. But you could stop here, and it would be sufficient, I think, for most people's needs. But because I have all the time in the world, I'm going to be a bit of a perfectionist. Doesn't look super pretty, but it is fine. Honestly, I might stop there. I did a much cleaner job last time because doing this under a camera is real weird. So you can see I did a much cleaner job last time. But the key is not really whether it looks pretty. The key is whether or not you have a sharp thing that's going to snag you. And I think I have reached that point where it's sufficient. So now our overall length of our spring is almost exactly like we hit last time. Wow, I did great. Let's pop that in and see how it works. Where's my small cap? So, do we have full clearance now? Still not quite, but dang is it close. It is nearly touching the bottom. It is, for all intents and purposes, touching the bottom. I think we're maybe a millimeter away, not even a full half a millimeter away. But it means that we have more clearance here, which means it's going to be easier to close the knife. You don't have to, you have more room to push it back over. And yeah, okay, that is the sweet spot. So for my personal taste, my sweet spot is starting with a 1.04 and trimming wherever the heck it ended up. Well, you can rewind and look at how much I pulled off. This guy. Starting with a 1.04 and trimming like 3 loops off, 2 loops off, something like that. That feels great. This thing is so stinking tiny. I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. I do still wish it had a deeper carry clip. So maybe sometime in the future they'll do that, because this is so thin and so short that this is way easier to slide into a pocket, but you have this much hanging out. And on this one, you have a 1/4 of an inch hanging out versus like a full inch or so. So I would think the one that's even more carryable by being slim should be even more carryable by having a deep clip, but alas. Anyway. Oh, did I not put the spring back in this? I did not. I was like, why is that not working at all? Okay. Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you for watching this. Hope you found it entertaining or a little bit informative, and it's not hard. You can see how easy it was to do. Springs are not scary. They're just little pieces of metal. And by the way, I went on that whole rant about how you need to get special pliers. You don't need to buy made in Germany fancy pliers. You can get cheap, much cheaper ones than these, but even these are not that expensive. I think I paid like 25 bucks, maybe something like that. But you can get them you can get something that is sufficient for, 10, 15. Or heck, you can get something like this that costs $5 and not care that you made a tiny little dent. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you had a nice day, and yeah, see you next time.